Your Honor, before the jury comes in, I would like to make a brief record of a couple things.
All right. The record will show the presence of the defendant and all counsel. The jury is not present. Mr. Nurmi.
Thank you, Your Honor. As it relates to the media, we're asking that the court again inquire before we begin session if there's been any exposure on behalf of the jurors to any media. The other thing we're asking as it relates to media is that the court remind the state, if true, there are reports that Detective Flores was talking to the media about what happened in chambers related to inquisition of a juror, and I was confronted before I even left courtroom today whether I could confirm what Detective Flores said. So I just want to make sure it's clear that as it relates to any misconduct motions, that it appears, if true, Detective Flores was talking to the media about things that were in sealed proceedings and wanted record made of that as well.
Mr. Martinez.
I'm not quite sure what he's talking about in terms of any reports that this detective is talking to the media about anything directly involving what may have happened this past week. The only record that we have are tweets between the defense counsel and Michael Kiefer of the Arizona Republic. So if this individual, or if Detective Flores was talking to somebody, I don't think it was anybody on the media. We've spoken about it. This is news to me that any of the media is reporting it. I haven't seen any reports of it. The only thing we have of any contact between the media is people with the defense side tweeting with members of the media, including Michael Kiefer of the Republic.
All right, Detective Flores, you understand you should not discuss anything you hear in sealed proceedings or in chambers.
Yes, I do, ma'am.
All right. Let's bring in the jury.
All right, jury.
Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Did any of you hear, see, or read anything about this case in the media since you were here last week? So please raise your hand. I see no hands. Did anyone attempt to speak with any of you about this case? Did anyone whatsoever attempt to speak to you about this case? If so, please raise your hand. I see no hands. Did any of you speak to anyone about this case? Please raise your hand. I see no hands. The state may call its next witness.
State recalls Detective Esteban Flores.
Detective Flores, please take the stand. You are still under oath. Do you understand?
Yes. Your name, sir?
My name is Esteban Flores.
And you're the individual that was previously on the witness stand in this case, correct?
Yes, I am.
Were you also present during the previous proceedings or the previous trial in this case?
Yes, I was.
And on January 29th of 2013, were you also present when an individual by the name of Daryl Brewer testified?
Yes, I was.
And that individual, was he sworn in as a witness?
Yes.
And was it the same defense attorney as Mr. Nurmi? Was he here?
Yes.
Was Jennifer Wilmots here when he testified?
Yes.
And was the defendant present?
Yes.
And during that time that he testified, did the issue of the gas cans come up?
Yes, that issue did come up.
To show you exhibit number 671.
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach?
You may.
Go ahead and take a look at exhibit. Sir, go ahead and take a look at, what's the exhibit number, 671?
671.
And that's a clip that's marked number 1. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, I am.
Does that contain any of the statements from Mr. Brewer involving the gas cans?
Yes, it does.
And did you preview it before coming to court?
Yes, a few days ago.
When did you preview it?
It was last week, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday.
Go ahead and play it and take a look at this. This would be page 32 of the transcript. Do you remember that during that favor, she was asking you for gas cans in May of 2008 at the very end,
Objection,
so
Your
that she
Honor.
could make
May we
a trip to
approach?
Mesa, Arizona? You remember that? You feeling it? Or do you-
Back to the jury room. Remember the admonition. We will be with you shortly.
And Your Honor, in addition to the provision of 122, Supreme Court Rule 122 that I was referencing, I do not have the statute book in front of me, but I believe ARS 13752Q subsection 1 also references the admissibility of videos. Your Honor, it's subsection J of Rule 122.
Counsel approach, please. Let's bring in the jury. Yes. Randy, just a moment. Yeah, yes, I think so. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Martinez, you may continue. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I sustained an objection. You are to disregard anything that you saw or heard in the clip from the video previously played. You may continue.
Sir, were you here when they were testifying?
Yes, I was.
And you have in front of you a transcript. What's the exhibit number?
Exhibit 676.
And on page 32, line 12, was a question asked by the prosecutor, Mr. Martinez, of Mr. Brewer. Do you remember that during that favor, she was asking you for gas cans in May of 2008 at the very end so that she could make a trip to Mesa, Arizona? Do you remember that? You remember that question, or is it?
Yes, I do remember that question.
And what was Mr. Brewer's answer?
He answered yes.
He was then asked, and she made more than one call asking you for these gas cans to make a trip to Arizona, didn't she? And what was Mr. Brewer's answer?
Yes.
In fact, in the first part of June of 2008, he called you again asking about these gas cans to go to Mesa, right? And Mr. Brewer's answer was?
Yes.
And who is Mr. Brewer to the defendant?
Mr. Brewer is a former boyfriend of Miss Arias, live-in boyfriend. They lived together and owned a house together for about a year or so.
Now go to page 35, line 24. And the following questioning with Mr. Brewer. Sir, did it come by your house on June 3rd of 2008, right? Before her trip, right? His answer was what?
Objection, no question.
Overruled.
What was his answer?
His answer was yes.
She came by and she had breakfast with you, right? His answer was?
We had some food. Yes.
And your son was there, right? His son, and his answer was?
Yes.
That was around 7 o'clock in the morning, wasn't it? What was his answer?
Approximately. Yes.
He was then asked, and while she was there, you allowed her to use for email or your computer, right? And his answer?
Yes.
And she checked her email, right? And what was his answer?
Yes.
On page 39, line 6. He was asked, do you recall her giving you a remote control that she had taken off that she had? Do you remember her returning and giving that back to you about 10 o'clock in the morning? What was his answer?
Yes, I do recall that.
He was also asked on page 40, line 2, how far is it, if you know, in terms of miles from Monterey to the Los Angeles area? And his answer?
A little more than 300 miles.
He was asked, and driving time, how much time would it be if you made the trip? His answer was?
6 to 8 hours.
Question was, and she was telling you that that's where she was going to go, right? And his answer was?
Yes.
And before she left, though, you gave her 2 gas cans, didn't you? And his answer was?
I did.
They were each 5-gallon gas cans, right? And what was his answer?
Correct.
For a total of 10 gallons that could be available to be put in these cans, right? What was his answer?
The cans would have held 10 gallons, yes.
Then he was asked, what color were the cans? And his answer?
They were red.
Go to page 46, line 6. He was asked, the gas cans, sir, did she ever return them to you? What was his answer?
No.
Ever asked her about returning those gas cans to you? What was his answer?
I don't recall if I ever had a chance to ask her now.
Take a look at Exhibit 237.016 first. Okay. This is from, and what's the name up here at the top?
That is a Tesoro.
And it does have Utah and SLC on it, right?
Yes, it does.
You look down here, you see MC, you see that?
Yes.
And then you also see 4 numbers. What are those numbers?
2015.
And the amount that was paid was how much?
$41.18.
Take a look at 237.017. You see the top, what's the top on that? What's the name?
Tesoro.
Is the address the same between that one and the previous exhibit?
Yes, they are.
And this exhibit, you see the number right here. What are the numbers?
2015.
Are they the same as the numbers here?
Yes, they are.
And this one is for how much?
$36.98.
Let's take a look at exhibit number 523. What's the name on there?
Jodi Arias,
What's the address?
352 Pine Street, Wairika, California.
Take a look at page 2. We do see, for example, a budget rent-a-car for renting. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Do you see the date on there?
June of 09.
But we also have receipts.
June 9th. I apologize.
We also have receipts that indicate something else, don't we?
Yes.
For example, we'll take a look at Exhibit 237.01, which is from who?
Budget rent-a-car.
And we see that the date that she actually rented the car was what?
Let's
See
see.
at the top, under 6751 Woodward Circle, you see that?
Yes, June 2nd of 2008,
What time?
8:04 a.m.
But this indicates, at least to the left, that the date was June 9th, correct?
Correct.
And the amount that was listed is how much?
Budget rent-a-car was
Yes.
$233.97.
If we take a look at exhibit number 23701, how much is the amount?
$233.97.
We go back to the statement. You see on 6-9 a purchase from a Tesoro in Salt Lake City for the amount of, take a look at 237.017 for $36.98. You see one?
Right there.
You then see 237.016 is for how much?
$41.18.
You see a purchase for $41.18 then.
Yes.
Now, there is another purchase there. How much is that for?
That one is for $19.65.
Were you also present when somebody by the name of Chelsea Young from Tesoro testified regarding this issue?
Yes, I was.
And she testified back on April 23 of 2013, correct?
Yes.
And are you familiar with Exhibit 635?
Yes, I am.
Is this something that she referenced during her testimony?
Yes, it was.
And it relates to these three purchases that we're talking about, correct?
That's correct.
We'll move to the initial exhibit number 635.
Objective Foundation.
Approach, please. I was admitted.
It does indicate that this individual is, first of all, who is she, sir?
She works for Tesoro. She's a business manager.
And he did indicate that she researched three transactions involving, and then she gave a number, MC 2015. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
If we go back to exhibit number 523, do you see the card number that's listed there?
2015.
Do the numbers match?
Yes, they do.
And then she indicated that they located the following on what day, the transaction. What day are they talking about?
June 5th of 2008.
If we go back to 237.017, you see here, June 6, right? But we see 36.98, right?
Yes.
And then it does say the transactions were on that day, but what date were they processed?
On the morning of June 6th of 2008.
And then we then take a look at exhibit 016. Can you see the date on this one?
Yes, it is June 6th of 2008.
The time on this one is what? What time is that?
3:57 a.m.
The other one, 017, time on that one is what?
4:05 a.m.
He did indicate that at 3:54 in the morning, there was a sale for how much?
$41.18.
We take a look at exhibit number 016. Do the amounts match?
Yes, they do.
And she indicates at the bottom there was another transaction, or how much? Bottom one.
$36.98.
And does that match 237.017 the amounts?
Yes, it does.
There's also another transaction that she was in the middle there at 4:01 in the morning. And how much is that?
$19.65.
And tell us what she then says. Starting here.
Starting at Jonathan.
From?
From. Would you like me to read it out loud?
Please.
From the daily trans, we were also able to determine that both the transaction amount, or $41.18, pump number 2, 10 gallons, 0.672, at $3.859 per gallon regular grade octane, and $19.65, pump 2, 5.091 gallons at 3.859 per gallon regular grade.
What is 10 plus 5, officer?
10 plus 5?
Yes.
50. I'm sorry, I thought you meant
15 or
multiply.
50?
15.
Or what?
Both parties at the
Or
pump
both what?
were both pay at the pump transactions.
So she's telling you that the 4118 and the 1965 were both pay at the pump transactions, right?
Yes.
Then what does it say?
The third transaction for $36.98 was performed inside by cashier. Jonathan Rhodes for a fuel transaction, pump 2, 9.583 gallons at $3.859 per gallon regular grade octane.
How much is 15 plus 10?
25.
And then she indicates that if you have any questions, you can ask her, correct?
Yes.
Sir, one of the things you were asked about last Thursday was this conversation that we had with Kevin Horn, who was the medical examiner. Do you remember being asked about him?
Yes, I was.
In that conversation, in terms of the hearing, when did it take place?
It took place, conversation I had with Dr. Horn took place the day before the hearing.
And during that conversation, about how long was the conversation?
About 5 to 10 minutes.
And that conversation in terms of sequencing of the injuries, had you reviewed the medical report and could you find any information about sequencing?
I did review the report and there was no information on sequencing.
Was there, prior to that conversation, was there any information about sequencing anywhere?
No.
Prior to that, did you have an idea as to what you thought the sequencing was?
I had a theory, yes.
And you then began to talk to Dr. Horn about sequencing. When did you, in this conversation, when did you talk to Dr. Horn about the sequencing?
It was at the very end of the conversation when I asked him about a theory that I had.
And what did you ask him?
I asked him if it was possible if the victim, Travis Alexander, could have remained conscious or regained consciousness after being shot in the head.
And what did he tell you at that point?
He said it was possible.
And anywhere, did he write this down that you're aware of, that the shot was the first event in the killing of Travis Alexander?
That was not written down anywhere.
And so after you had that conversation, you then testified the next day, correct?
Yes.
Do you have a medical degree from anywhere?
No, I do not.
Do you have any training that allows you to sequence injuries?
No.
But you did have a theory, and you talked to him about that theory, right?
Yes, I did.
So one of the things that you did as part of this investigation of the Mesa Police Department, they came across a text message on the victim's cell phone, right?
Yes.
Exhibit 504 talks about an incoming message to his being Travis Alexander's cell phone, right?
Yes.
And it's from who? Who is it from?
It's from Jodi Arias,
And there's a date on there. What's the date on it?
June 6th of 2008.
And the time, are you aware that perhaps there's a difference of 7 to 8 hours from the time it actually happened? So instead of 16, it could be 11:58, correct?
Yes, there is a difference.
And this message on June 6th from Jodi Arias, and what does it say?
It says, hey, I need to know when you're going to deposit that check, question mark.
Well, let me ask you about this. Exhibit number 160 that the defense counsel was asking you about last time you testified. You're familiar with this, right?
Yes, I am.
And what's the date and time on it?
June 4th of 2008 at 5:30 p.m.
This text message was before or after this photograph was taken?
It was after.
It was after she killed him, right?
Yes.
She did ask about a check, though, Exhibit 39, when the house was searched, was a check found.
Yes.
And first of all, who is the person on the upper left? What's the name?
Jodi Arias.
And who's it to?
It is to Travis Alexander.
And what's the amount?
$200.
Well, it does indicate something on there about car payments April and May 2008, right?
Yes, it does.
And it comes from a bank. What bank is that?
Washington Mutual.
The date on this is what?
It is 5/25/08.
Are you also familiar with Exhibit 505, which is an email written by Jodi Arias?
Yes.
And the date on that is, read it out to me.
Saturday, the 7th of June, 2008
At what time?
at 10:21:03. That's a.m.
If we take a look at Exhibit 162, you're familiar with this photograph, right?
Yes, I am.
What's the time on this? That's the defendant seen there. What's the time of it?
That's June 4th of 2008 at 5:32:16 p.m.
So is June 7th after this photograph is taken?
Yes, it is.
And who is it sent to?
Sent to Travis Alexander.
Read that.
It says, hey you, I haven't heard back from you. I hope you're not still upset that I didn't come to see you. I just didn't have enough time off. It's okay, sweetie. You're going to be here in less than 2 weeks. We're going to see the sights, check things off the list, and all kinds of fun things. Oregon is beautiful this time of year. Yay, be happy, exclamation point. Anyway, I wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about pushing my visit up to next week, but it depends on my budget, so I'm not for sure yet. I know you'll be in Cancun, but I'll probably crash at your house in your cozy bed anyway. Eat some of your oatmeal, frozen dinners, you know, the usual, JK. I know you said the door is always open, but I wanted to give you a heads up. If for any reason that won't work, let me know. I'll make other arrangements. Your house has always been my second home, but it's a bit more lonely without naps around. You're probably in California right now, but wherever you are, get a hold of me at least before you head to Mexico. Thanks, hon, Jodi.
And it does reference Cancun and it does reference Mexico, right?
It does.
You interviewed her with regard to this issue, right, about Cancun and Mexico, right?
Yes.
What did she tell you in terms of when she learned about Cancun and Mexico and Mr. Alexander going there?
During the interview I had with her, she mentioned that she didn't learn of the Cancun trip until the memorial Travis Alexander's memorial.
Which was it before or after June 7th?
It was after.
Was there also a telephone call that was left on Mr. Alexander's cell phone? Was there a message there?
Yes, there was.
And was it from the defendant?
Yes.
And what was the date and time that she left this voice message?
It was the same night that Travis was killed on
So that would be
June
June
4th of 2008. And it was around 11:52, I believe.
And with regard to cell phones, are you familiar with whether or not law enforcement is able to not pinpoint, but try to determine or triangulate where the cell phone is?
Yes, we can.
And you're familiar with it, right?
Yes,
And that was done in this case, wasn't it?
it was.
Who was it done by?
It was done by a fellow detective, Larry Gladish.
And he's somebody that, since you're the case agent, would come back and report to you his progress about what was going on, right?
Yes,
In terms of the telephone, and we're talking about the defendant's telephone, the cell phone, was it kept on the evening of June 4th, 2008?
it was not.
When was it turned on?
It was turned off early morning. Actually, I think it was June 3rd. It was the last time that it was turned on. It turned off outside of Pasadena, California.
So the telephone is turned off on June 3rd, 2008 in Pasadena, around Pasadena, California. Was it the evening, the morning, what time?
It was in the evening.
When was the telephone powered back on, this telephone that she owned?
It was around the same time that this message happened, which was June 4th, about 11:50 p.m.
So what happens to the signals if the telephone is turned off, a cell phone? What happens to the signals? Or are people like you, the police, able to triangulate off of it and try to find out where it is?
No, when it's turned off, we don't get a signal.
So in this case, from Pasadena until right near what? Where is it that it triangulated next?
Near Las Vegas.
So between Pasadena and Las Vegas, could the police tell where that phone was on, where it was?
No, we could not.
Why not?
Because it was off and it was not sending signals to any of the towers in that area.
And Exhibit 365, have you reviewed this to determine whether or not that is the call that was left on June 4th, sometime after 11 o'clock in the evening on Mr. Alexander's cell?
Yes, I have.
Message. Hey, what's going on? It's almost midnight. Anyway, right about the time you're starting to hear that. I know Leslie called you, so I already talked to her, so you can call her back if you want, but it's not necessary. My phone died, so I wasn't getting back to anybody. And what else? Oh, when I drove 100 miles in the wrong direction, over 100 miles, thank you very much. So yeah, remember New Mexico? It was a lot like that, only you weren't here to prevent me from going into the 3 digits, so fun. Tell you all about that later. Also, we were talking about, when we were talking about your upcoming travels my way, I was looking at the May calendar, so I'm all confused. But Heather and I are going to see Othello on July 1st, and we would love for you to accompany us. I don't know when Team Freedom's event is, though, but, it's on the list, so we could do Shakespeare, Crater Lake, and the coast. So if you can make it, if not, we'll just do the coast in Crater Lake. But let me know, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. End of message. To delete this message, press 7. To save it in the archives, press 9. Message will be saved for 21.
During these 3 efforts, the cell phone message, a text message, and the email message, is Mr. Alexander alive or dead?
He was dead at that point.
Once the investigation got started, did you receive any telephone calls from the defendant asking to speak with you?
Yes.
And at some point, did you talk to her about whether or not Mr. Alexander had a gun?
Yes, I did.
And exhibit number 273, is this the clip from that telephone call?
Yes, it is.
And did you initiate the contact with her, or did she call you? How was it that this came about? You had this conversation on June 10th of 2008.
I received a message from a patrol officer that they had received a message in our dispatch about a person by the name of Jodi Arias trying to get a hold of the case agent on this case.
And you talked to her, and this is part of that conversation involving whether or not Mr. Alexander had a gun. There's some other talk also, right?
Yes.
Let's take a look at, or listen to exhibit 273.
Can I call you again if I need more information, or if I have another question? Do you have any questions I can answer for you?
Yeah, do you know when all this happened? I mean, I got a call last night, but is there any word on?
Sometime between Thursday and last night. We're not sure yet. We haven't pinpointed yet.
And you said that maybe multiple people, because he's a big guy. Maybe you can't talk about this, but was there like any kind of weapon used, or was there a gun? Was there?
I can't say what type of weapon was used, but yeah, I'm guessing there was a weapon used by the type of injuries that were left behind. Do you know of him having any weapons at all in the house?
His two fists.
That's it?
Really?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. No handguns or rifles or...
No, he wasn't one to keep any of that I know.
Fighting
He's
knives or anything like that?
No, he was more into like wrestling and UFC, and he had he said he had just bought a punching bag, and he's like, I love being the crap out of the punching bag,
Yeah,
but,
that's what
You and she did discuss about whether or not he had any guns, right?
Yes, she did.
And at that time, was she sitting in a police station, or was she somewhere else free to do whatever it was that she wanted?
Objection, lack of knowledge.
Overruled. You may answer.
When I spoke to her on the phone that day, she told me she was in Wairika, California, at her home.
And at that point, were there any officers out in Wairika, or was this early on in the investigation?
That was the day of the day after the investigation had started.
And she's the one that initiated this sort of back and forth with you.
Yes.
As part of that same conversation on June 10th, was there also, part of that conversation, did she offer to help you in your investigation?
Yes, she did.
And is that contained in Exhibit 272?
Yes.
hours, interview with Jodi Arias. Number 2008-1610804.
hello?
Hello, can I speak to Jodi, please?
This is Jodi.
Hey, Jodi, this is Detective Steve Flores with Mesa, Arizona Police Department.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Good. I just got a message from one of my patrol officers that you needed to talk to me about something.
Well, I just wanted to offer my assistance that I might have. I was a really good friend of Travis's, and I just, I know that I don't know a lot of anything, but...
What have you heard so far?
I heard that he passed away, and that it was, I don't know, I heard all kinds of rumors. I heard there was a lot of blood. I heard that his roommate found him, or his friend found him, or people were. I'm sorry. So I'm upset. But I've heard that nobody's been able to get a hold of him for almost a week, and that was about the last time I spoke to him too.
Okay.
Which is actually why I said that my friend said I should call you anyway and let you know the last time I talked to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any help we can get from anybody who had any kind of contact with him, any phone contact.
I used to talk to him quite regularly. I used to live there. I live in Northern California now. But after I moved a few months ago, and after I moved, we've kept in touch very regularly, and kind of fell back a little bit. And we got down to about a couple times a week, but I hadn't heard from him. I talked to him on Tuesday night. I looked at my phone records on the internet to check, and I definitely talked to him Tuesday night.
Okay. So was it your cell phone, or?
Yeah, that was my cell. It's the only phone I have. So.
Is this the number that I called?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was Tuesday night. Do you remember about what time?
I think it was, I want to say like 9:15, but I think it was sometime between 8 and 10. No, it wasn't as late as 10. Probably between 8:30 and 9:30 more so, to narrow it down.
And what did you guys talk about?
It was brief. I was driving up to Utah, and, he was like, "Are you going to come out and see me?" And I'm like, "No." And, he's supposed to make a trip up here, at the end of the month, because thing that we are doing is called, there's a book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, and it's been featured on the Travel Channel and all that, and we sort of got into that last year where we were starting to see all these different places on the list, and we thought, 1,000 places is a lot of places, but that would be a fun goal. So we each kind of have that goal, and one of the places is the Oregon coast, and the Shakespearean Festival, and so he was going to come up here for that, and we were just going to go see that in Crater Lake and just different landmarks. And
What was it scheduled, or just something you guys talked about?
It was wasn't officially dated, but I've been trying to reach him so that I could solidify my own schedule because I was planning on making a trip down there soon. But it was supposed to happen in May, and then it's supposed to happen last week, and that didn't work out. So he was going to leave for Cancun today, and then he said as soon as he gets back from Cancun, he was going to make the trip because he's going to drive up the coast. And when he reaches me, we'll go do some things, and then he'll continue on to Washington and see some friends up there. And then I guess that was supposed to happen before the beginning of July. July, he was supposed to go to Washington, D.C.
Okay. Did he have any issues with anybody here in town? Anybody that wanted to do him harm?
His tires it was last year. He said he was worried about that, and I was worried about that. He never locked his doors, and I would tell him, lock your doors, and he's like, you're not my mom, And he comes from a bad city. He comes from Ruby, California, which is gangs and violence, but I come from a similar type of neighborhood in California. So my parents and I, we've always locked our doors, and that's just my habit. But he doesn't have that habit, and he lives in a great neighborhood, and it's never been an issue. Nothing has ever been stolen. He's never been, broken into, and he had his tires slashed. I don't remember when it was. It was last year, sometime around Christmas, I think.
Okay.
Other than that.
Now, how would you describe your relationship with him?
We dated for like 5 months, and we broke up, and we continued actually to see each other for quite a bit. Right up until I moved.
When did you guys break up?
We officially broke up June 29th of last year. And, but we didn't. Even though we broke up, we were no longer boyfriend and girlfriend. We decided to remain friends. But I kind of feel embarrassed talking about this. But it was more friends, but it wasn't boyfriend and girlfriend. It was more like kind of buddies. You know what I mean?
Okay. She got torn up
romantic as far as the relationship goes, but we were in no way headed toward marriage or talking anything about that. We hung it probably too much sometimes.
Are you saying intimate? Does that include like a sexual relationship with him?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. That was kind of embarrassing to talk about stuff
I
like
know,
that.
and
You know me, so.
yeah, and if you could just keep it confidential for now,
Yeah.
because I know that he's Mormon, he's not seriously looked down upon in our church, and I mean, I'm telling you this to help in any way I can.
Okay. I appreciate it. Yeah, so you actually moved back to California a couple of months ago?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. What date was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember the exact date. I mean, I have the dates I rented the U-Haul. It was early April. Early, like before April 10th. So it's after the 1st, but before the 10th. So I'm guessing 7th, 8th, 9th maybe. I'd have to check the dates, but I was...
Did you stop by the house when you rented the U-Haul to say goodbye to him?
Oh, yeah. In fact, after I was almost moved out completely out of my house for about a week afterward, and I just stayed at his house the whole time. I mean, I practically lived there, even when I was there. I spent the night there several times a week while I lived there. I came over and I cleaned his house a lot. He paid me a little bit every month to keep his house nice and clean.
Okay.
Sort of like a housekeeper, so.
Did you ever happen to meet any of his roommates at that time?
He was really well at this time. Various roommates. Some have moved out. One guy moved to Utah, and one guy moved to Phoenix. Zach I don't know if Zach is still there. I think he is.
Yeah, he is.
I knew Zach because I met him, and we sort of connected because he's a photographer like I am, and he took the room that Aaron was in previously. So yeah.
And what do you think about Zach? What do you think his relationship is with your ex-boyfriend?
He seemed like a nice guy. When I first met him, he seemed just like a normal guy. He's a returned missionary, and he served don't do that, I didn't lose you. He served his mission. I think he had a girlfriend. He liked it so much that he moved back. He knew Travis from church, so, him and his girlfriend were there. I think there was some alcohol there at one time, and Travis was suspicious about it, but he said he used it for cooking, which is, that's fine, because, Mormons don't drink alcohol, but,
well, some
Travis, they're not supposed to, and Travis, that's another thing when it came to that, we call it the word of wisdom, no alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or coffee or tea, and he was just super, super, super strict on that. He wouldn't even take Excedrin for a headache because it had caffeine. Like, he's so strict on that. I'm a little less strict on that. I'll pop Excedrin any day, but...
There's a lot of Diet Cokes in the fridge.
Yeah, I can guarantee that. He wouldn't even touch Coke. So, it's one of his other roommates, I guess.
Okay. And that was around April that you last saw him, right?
April.
You haven't been back in town since then?
No, I haven't at all.
Okay. You mentioned your name, and you've been back in town for like a week or a couple of days.
I've been thinking about going there, so yeah, I've been definitely planning on heading down there.
But you haven't physically been here since you left?
Since I moved, no, I haven't. So, I was going to go this week, actually, while he was in Cancun and stay at his house, but it's not in the budget. So.
Was that something that you guys had scheduled, that you were going to come down and stay at his house while he was gone?
Yeah, no, actually, that's what I emailed him about last week, because it was kind of last minute, because I was going to go, I'm looking at a calendar here, I was going to go not this week, but the next, and then he was going to come up here that following week, which was before July. And, I'm kind of like, well, like travelers, and I figured, it would be a good idea if I would have a place to stay. His house is open all the time to friends. I mean, anybody in his business or anybody that comes to visit, he gives up his bed. He'll sleep on the couch. He lets them have the whole room. So it just didn't seem like, he said the door's always open, so I would have felt totally okay just showing up and staying at his house and eating his frozen dinners, et cetera, et cetera. And he would have been fine with that too. And I just, he said just always give me a heads up. So I asked him, let me know if that's cool. If not, I'll make other arrangements. And I never heard back.
When was that email sent out?
Just a few days ago. I'm in front of the computer, so I can check right now for you.
Okay, yeah, if you can do that, great.
Yeah, hang on a sec. Let me just log into my account.
What's his email address?
Yeah, to his email.
Yeah, what is his email address, do you know?
His email is travis.alexander@gmail.com. Let's see. I sent one on June 7th. Haven't heard back from you. He got a little bit upset when I wasn't trying to see him. But he gets upset really easily. He like hangs over me a little bit, and we kind of guilt each other sometimes.
So you guys still had a fairly decent relationship as friends?
We did. We had
What we talked to said that you guys, that your relationship was kind of rocky, and it got a little crazy at times. Or
what happened was when I broke up with Travis around last year, because it was all really dumb. It was a bunch of drama. I had a suspicion that he was cheating on me, and so I looked in his phone to find out, and I found all these text messages, and like it just all blew up, and it was like we realized we couldn't trust each other. So I mean, we broke up at that point, but we were still attracted to each other, and we still loved each other. So it wasn't the best thing, but we still hung out all the time together. And it didn't really help either of us to move on, because I haven't really dated anyone since. And he told me that he hadn't dated anyone since, but then he told me that he has. So it's always weird, because we kept our dating lives sort of from each other, like a don't have policy sort of. And I think it worked out. It was more convenient for us. I figured, if he didn't have a girlfriend, I'm okay coming over. And as long as he didn't think that I was with anybody, then he was fine too. So just the less we knew about each other's dating lives or romantic lives, the better that we were, the better off we were. So, it was sent June 7th. Yeah, this is the one I sent about letting you know that I came up.
And what town are you in again?
I'm sorry?
What town are you in again?
I'm in Wairika, California. Yreka.
Yreka?
Uh-huh.
Oh, where is that at?
It is 15 minutes from Oregon, and it's on Interstate 5.
Okay. Alright, so just right to the Oregon border.
Yeah. It's inland.
Not close to the coast?
No, unfortunately.
I had some other questions. I'm trying to remember what they were. I mean, you kind of lived in the house for a while. You knew the surroundings inside out, the kind of furniture he had, the bedding and stuff. Can you describe his bedroom bedding and stuff for me? It's kind of an unusual question, but...
No, that's fine. I spent a lot of time in there. He's got like, I don't know, like Egyptian cotton or whatever. It's really nice brown linen, and it's soft. It's not like flannel, but it's soft. And he always bragged to everyone about his IntelliGel bed, which is really comfy. So he's got a great mattress, and it's like, apparently it was a mattress that he picked up for really, really cheap, because it was a showroom thing or it was a return. Sweet deal on it. So it's a king size. I don't know if it's California or what, but it's a king size bed. And it's kind of like I think it's like a sleigh bed. It's Scots wood.
Okay. But the bedding is mainly like a brown linen, really nice cotton linen.
Yeah, it's maybe different patterns on the sheets versus the comforter, but the sheets are brown and the comforter is brown and the pillowcases are brown.
What? So the color of the comforter is brown as well? Does it have any type of pattern or tassels or edging?
I think it has stripes. I think it has like, and they're not like color stripes, they're just like stripes in the brown pattern stuff.
Oh, it's dark brown, but it's got a little bit darker brown, like threading
And the sheets may be more of like a checkered thing, I think, if I remember correctly. And it's his cover too, his bedspread is like, it's a down comforter that's white, and then it's got like a, I don't know what he used to call it, it has a special name. But
Is it like a duvet cover?
Yes, a duvet.
What does the duvet look like?
It comes like it's got buttons on the end, and it covers the whole thing, and you slide the actual comforter inside the duvet, which is what you pull off to wash, or, you know, or you can, that kind of thing. So, and we've, like many times, it's so hard to get in there with one person, so you kind of just grab the corners and you pull it in together on one side, and then you just sort of fluff it out and then button up the buttons.
Yeah, 'cause that down kind of just shoves over in one corner and it doesn't want to spread out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it didn't have like any type of edging or tassels or anything like that you know of, like a light brown.
That's what I remember.
Is there anything in the house that resembled anything with some type of small tan ropish kind of material or edging or anything like that? A blanket?
He may have pillows. Yeah, he may have had pillows. Yeah, he has pillows on his bed, not on his bed, but on the chair that's next to his bed.
Yeah, we
So
saw
there's,
those.
yeah, there's those. There's also a round pillow that he uses to make his bed, and there's just one, and he puts it in the center. And there's like, there may be some kind of tassel thing on that.
Alright. Do you know anybody back here still that still has contact with him?
Yeah, lots of people, tons of people.
Is that how you found out about what had happened?
A friend of mine, Dan Freeman, called me last night. I met Dan through Travis.
Dan Friedman.
Freeman. Yeah, F-R-E-M-A-N.
Okay, yeah, we talked to him as well.
Yeah. I met him last year with his sister when we all took a trip out to the Grand Canyon and to Sedona.
So he called you last night and told you what happened?
Yeah, he didn't have a lot of information.
Any idea what everybody's talking about, what they're saying, what their suspicions are?
They're saying, everything that I heard was that, I got a lot of my information from Bishop Layton, more details, and he basically that they took everybody and separated them, and I don't know who everybody is. I'm assuming Zach, because he was there, and his girlfriend, because I called Zach's cell phone, and she couldn't tell me anything, but she answered. And she said, there are a lot of people here that I don't know, but Zach's not here, so it didn't make sense. And I was confused, but she couldn't tell me anything. So I didn't get a lot of the Bishop Layton said he was there for 4 hours, and they interviewed everybody, and they all went to the police station, and that they're treating it as a suspicious death. And I heard from my friend Dave Hall that there was a lot of blood, and I don't know if that's just a rumor that's going around or if it's true. And I also heard that his services will be in California, but that they haven't released his body to his grandma yet. So that's all I've really heard so far.
Well, I can tell you that we're investigating it as a homicide.
Okay.
And not a suspicious death anymore. It's pretty obvious. And it's important for us to find out why somebody would want to do harm to him.
Exactly.
What kind of stuff he was possibly involved in, or maybe it just could have been as simple as a burglary, an intruder, or something that had gone wrong.
I'm wondering, because he's so, when I said suspicious death, I thought, well, he's trying to ship pounds for Cancun, so he looks good in boxers or bathing suit or whatever, or swim trunks, and, I know that he takes supplements, and he works out really, really hard. I've seen him work out, and it's a very intense routine, and he has these heavy dumbbells that he uses, and he's so strong. I mean, there's a couple times we've tried to wrestle just for fun and show me some moves, and there's just no, I don't see how anyone, unless maybe there were two people, I don't see how anyone could overpower him unless there was...
He's a pretty good-sized guy.
Yeah, he was close to 200 pounds, I think.
Yeah. It would take, I would say, two people, if not maybe more, to kind of overpower him. I've tried with officers, working this job to take down a woman at 135 pounds who's out of control, and it's difficult to control, somebody like that. No ideas come to mind, why somebody would want to hurt him. Did he owe something money? Did he have any worries or concerns about anybody?
He did owe people money, but they were all good friends. They weren't, it wasn't a bad situation. It was, in fact, there was one family that lent him money that's very, very wealthy from what I understand, and it's not like it hurt them to lend him the money. Of course, they expected him to pay it back, and he had a very reasonable timeline. And they also had really good collateral in case he didn't pay back. They owned a piece of stock that he owned, so if they didn't pay him back, it was like $6,000 or something. I think it was $6,000. But if he didn't get them paid back on time, then they would just keep his stock, which would eventually be worth over $25,000. So I don't think they were worried about that at all. That's the Hyatt family. I think Brian Hyatt was there last night. But that was when he was struggling financially several months back, and I don't know. I haven't talked to him about how that's going since. But I know that.
What's the situation with the car that was? Somebody mentioned a BMW.
Yeah, I'm on his BMW.
Okay, because we found a check that was written by you to him. I think it was last month.
I recently mailed him a check. I mailed him that and a few other things. I'm making payments to him.
Okay, and you still have that car right now?
No, it's actually not in my possession. I did the dumbest thing. I went and hooked it up to the U-Haul. Everything was cool and set to go. I got the dolly where the back wheels on the ground because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And the U-Haul guy said, okay, drive it up here. Okay, stop, brakes, and everything was cool. And I stopped the car, turned it off. Opened the car with the door open so they could look at everything. And they shut the door and said, you're good to go. And I took off. And this is going to sound really dumb. I know this is not how you tow a car, but I left it in first gear.
Yeah.
And I started headed down the highway and I blew the engine to smithereens. It looked like it gave birth all over the highway. There was just black oil everywhere. And so it's sitting at Wes's Auto something last time I checked. It's sitting there in Mesa. And the guy's been really nice about just keeping it until Trevor figures out what he's going to do. We've called lawyers about it, and my lawyer said, have your insurance fix it, and his lawyer said your insurance might not fix it because it might be considered mechanical. So that's the way we talked about it. We've been, he's been real busy and hasn't had a lot of time to attend to it. And I have a vehicle right now, but not for much longer because I have to give it back to the bank. So, either way.
When did you mail that payment? End of May?
It was a few weeks ago, yeah, it must have been.
Okay. So you're still making payments to that?
Oh yeah, and that's my first payment because we just did this car deal right before I moved, and he said we had the agreement too. I think that I checked out and emailed to him, but we have he said just get on your feet, and then start sending payments. And the agreement was no X amount per month, whatever I could pay. So I got a job and gave him that payment for $200.
What was $200 a month?
Yeah. Okay. It was $100 minimum. If you minimum. And if I could pay more, please. Kind of thing.
Okay. We did talk to certain people, and I don't want to tell you this. I don't want to make you feel bad, but they didn't have the best of things to say about you. They felt that you were either taking advantage of him or just hanging around when you weren't wanted. They mentioned that you would sometimes end up going into his house, and you were in his house when he didn't want you there, and he would ask you to leave, but you would continue to return. There was also some talk about you
him my Facebook password and my Gmail account password. And the reason we did that is because it was kind of dumb. We did that months and months ago, and we thought, what can we do to try to reestablish trust between us? And, well, why don't we start with that? And so that's what we did, and then, it just didn't work. He got really upset finally, and he's like, this isn't working. And I said, this is too much of a headache. Let's just change our passwords. So we did. We changed our passwords after that.
How long ago did you guys change them?
I changed mine, not long ago, probably 3 weeks ago maybe. And I don't know about his because once he made it clear that he wasn't comfortable with that anymore, I didn't even try to get back into his account anymore. So.
Yeah, I've been married almost 20 years, and I don't have my wife's email. That's what. Sometimes you just.
True. It's true. We've had hours upon hours of conversation, and I said, I just don't know if I could ever trust you again, and he doesn't know if he could ever trust me again because I might always want to get back into his phone and find out does he really have something going on or what, because, he did at one point, and so he said, yeah, I understand that, and he said, but if we were married, you would have all my passwords to everything because there wouldn't be anything to worry about.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's nice,
Yeah.
but we're not married. So, and as far as getting into his email, that never happened. What he has on his computer is he would oftentimes just leave his computer on, and he'll leave his Gmail window up. And there were times when I got on his computer to look up other things, and if his Gmail window was not open, then I would just close it. That would constitute getting into his email.
I had to mention that to you because we are getting a search warrant for his email, Gmail and Facebook and those accounts. And we can tell where those things were accessed from by IP addresses. And I just want to make it clear that, that if you did access it from somewhere else at a certain time, if you access it from California, we're going to know.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I did.
Okay.
He gave me his password. The only accounts that I accessed were MySpace and Gmail because those were the only passwords.
And how long ago? When was the last time you actually accessed those?
Weeks ago, we had a conversation where it's like he just made it clear that he wasn't comfortable with that anymore, and I said that's okay. And I changed my Gmail account password because he got into that too, and then he saw another guy's email there, and gave me a hard time about it, and so it just was dumb. We're both trying to move on, and we're both, I don't know, it was weird.
Seems like there was a lot of jealousy issues.
I think there might have been on both parts. For me, it wasn't so much jealousy as it was, I just wanted to know, I just wanted him to be honest. And for him, I think one of the reasons I moved was because we were spending too much time together and we weren't moving on. And it wasn't able to, I guess I could have dated other people, but our social circles were so small that anytime you heard about something, it just wasn't good.
Okay. Did you move down here the first time because of him?
Yeah, I moved there because of him, and I moved away because of him. Primarily. I also moved away for financial reasons. I'm with my grandparents now, but, there were three main reasons I moved here. One, I missed my family, and two, financially, and three was because of Travis. And the main reason that I moved there was because of Travis.
Okay. Yeah, because when we first arrived on scene and started talking to people, some of his closest friends, began mentioning your name as, hey, you need to call her because she probably knows what happened to him, or she possibly had something to do with it.
Oh gosh, no,
That's how bad it was getting at the scene. And I needed to talk to you to find out why they would say something like that. Why they would start pointing fingers in your direction right away.
I don't know. Maybe because I'm the ex-girlfriend, we've had lots of fights.
Was there a lot of issues? Obviously it wasn't a great relationship.
It was great for a while until it all we started fighting because I I did know thing, and I got into his phone because I had a suspicion that he wasn't being faithful, and I found, a bunch of text messages that were no good. And rather than being an adult about it and confronting him, I kept it in, and I kind of let it fester, and I was miserable, and he didn't know why, and I wanted to tell him, but I was worried that it would just lead to an unnecessary fight, and then I realized this is no kind of relationship, so it finally all came out, and he was really apologetic, but we just both realized that neither of us could be in an adult relationship, and that was June of last year. So at that point, we continued to see each other, for a long time after that.
Well, I'm glad I did get a hold of you again. You did call me because it kind of clears up a lot of the questions I had, and a lot of the concerns. It's not what I don't think it's what these people thought was going on. So really
I should probably tell you that Travis, when he got upset, he would send me really mean emails. He would send me mean text messages and things. You'll find probably some stuff on his Facebook. I know for sure you'll find one on his Facebook and definitely in his Gmail, and you're welcome to access all of my accounts too if you want.
Okay.
With Travis,
we're probably gonna subpoena all his Facebook and Gmail and everything to see who he was communicating with, what he was saying, what they were saying to him. So,
okay.
I'm not sure how far back. We usually go 6 months to a year.
Okay.
But in a case like this, we need to know, who had some type of beef with him, who, why they would do something like this to him.
Yeah.
I hate telling people over the phone, but, like I said, it is a homicide investigation. And it was an angry situation. And when we see scenes like this, the first thing we think is these people hated each other. Somebody went in there to hurt him, and they did. And they hurt him really bad. And he's a big guy, and it would take, like I mentioned to you before, it would take more than one person to do this to him.
Can you?
And I was just hoping maybe you could kind of point me in the right direction. I'm talking to everybody that he knows that knows.
I want to talk to a guy named Thomas Brown, and I don't think that, honestly, I haven't seen or heard from him since he was kicked out. I think his last name was Brown. I could try to find him on ldslinkup.com, but that was so long ago, though. That was last spring of 2007, in March even. And what happened was he got kicked out because he was considered like borderline sexual predator, not like a rapist, but coming on to girls and that kind of thing. And it's just really looked down upon in the church. And so he was disfellowshipped, and Travis said, you need to get out, get your stuff out of my house. And it wasn't a friendly situation. It was said over the phone because he and I were in Missouri and somewhere back east, just touring, and Thomas was.
So he ended up kicking him out at that time.
Yeah, he kicked him out at the time, but Thomas, he's a really big guy, but he doesn't seem like he doesn't seem violent. He seemed pretty gentle. He just seemed like a little bit thuggish, but like he was trying to act the part, not because he was bad. Okay. Maybe because he thought it would like attract chicks or something. I don't know. So he seemed honestly like I didn't know him that well, but he seemed like a big dumb teddy bear.
He does seem to indicate that maybe it was one of his roommates.
Hang on, I'm going to object at this point. May we approach?
You may. You proceed.
So we were talking about. So we were talking about this conversation, and one of the things that she seemed to indicate, or not seemed, indicated was that this was a roommate who may have had an hex run against Mr. Alexander, right?
Yes.
And the reason that she claimed was that it involved an issue of this roommate looking things up, doing things, right?
Yes.
Specifically, what was it?
Some kind of sexual deviant activity.
By the roommate, right?
Yes.
And did you bring it up, or did she bring that up?
She brought that up.
And she gave you the name of the roommate, right?
Yes, Mr. Brown.
And did you follow up on this, just on the off chance that this sexual deviant had done something?
I don't believe I did too much follow up on it. I did look up the name and try to find out where he lived.
And she was somewhat specific as to what this sexual deviant had done, right?
Yes.
Sir, one of the things that the police was seized as part of the investigation was exhibit number 233. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, I am.
What is it?
It's a journal.
And whose journal was it?
It is Jodi Arias' journal.
Was it submitted for handwriting analysis?
Yes.
And the determination, who was the person that actually analyzed it?
It was from Arizona Department of Public Safety. I can't remember his name, but he works for the lab.
Are you familiar with an individual by the name of Alan Kreidel?
Yes.
Looting.
Overruled.
Are you familiar with an individual by the name of Alan Kreidel?
Yes, I am.
Is he the individual that actually conducted the handwriting comparison?
Yes.
Were you the person that actually got the exemplars from the defendant, or did he?
I did.
So you actually, as part of this investigation, went to her and asked her to provide handwriting exemplars, correct?
Yes.
And then they were compared to this, exhibit number 233, and there was a conclusion. What was that conclusion by Mr. Kreidel?
The conclusion was that the journal was written by Miss Jodi Arias.
I'm going to show you an exhibit. Trying to take a look at exhibit 677 to see if I recognize it.
Yes.
Is it a journal entry?
Yes, it is.
Does it come from exhibit number 233?
Yes, it does.
And what date is on there?
It is June 13th of 2008.
This conversation that you had with the defendant was what date? Or that you just listened to?
That was June 10th of 2008.
Move the admission of exhibit number 677.
I object, Your Honor.
Approach, please. Six 77 is admitted.
Let's take a look at exhibit 677. And it's start with where it says Friday, read it,
Friday, 6/13/08, Norma Sarvey.
just slow down, moderate, and if you could pull the microphone closer.
says Norma Sarvi. I don't know what that word is.
Mom's name?
Mums. I'm not sure. Got her flowers today. I sent 20 white irises. Travis always told me that he liked the name Iris for a girl. That and Hinckley, Reagan, or Megan. I'll take Iris. Iris.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. He liked Vern for a boy's name. What's that?
He liked Ivan for a boy's name. Does it say that?
He liked Ivan for a boy's name. If I ever have a son, I'll name him Alexander. It starts with, I miss Travis more than words can say. It's weird. I was getting so used to communicating less frequently with him, finally building up other areas of my life, but his passing has brought up so many things, so many old feelings. It almost feels like I broke up with him again, and thus the separation. I don't know, just don't know. This can't really be real.
So you were at the scene, correct?
Yes, I was.
And you're familiar with Exhibit 218?
Yes.
What is 218?
218 is I believe it's the casing which was found.
And what's the caliber of this casing?
It was a .25 caliber.
You were asked a lot of questions, or not a lot, you were asked some questions about Mr. Alexander and whether or not he had his back to the defendant last time, Thursday. Do you remember that line of questioning?
Yes, I do.
And you were shown, for example, exhibit number 141. You see that?
Yes.
And you were shown a number of other photographs where he is standing. You see that?
Yes, I do.
As part of your experience as a police officer, have you had occasion to be involved in cases where an individual is either attacked sitting down or standing? Have you had those kinds of cases?
Objection as to relevance.
Overruled.
Yes.
How many of those have you had?
I can't recall several.
And in terms of an individual who's standing versus an individual who's sitting, something like exhibit number.
Again, is objection as to expertise and foundation.
Finish the question.
Exhibit 157, you see that?
Yes.
And this individual that's sitting versus the individual that's standing, which one is in a better position to defend himself? The one that's seated or the one that's standing?
Objection, speculation, relevance.
Approach, please.
Officer, with regard to an individual who's standing, can they ambulate? Can they move? Can they walk?
Objection calls for speculation. He's already testified he doesn't have a medical degree.
Overruled.
Can they?
Yes, they can.
And with regard to an individual who's standing, are they able to move in a certain direction by walking?
Objection, speculation. Too many variables.
Overruled.
Can they?
Yes.
And while this individual is standing, assuming they don't have a medical infirmity, can they extend their hands out? If
Yes.
they're standing.
Yes, they can.
And if they want to move in a certain direction, can they begin walking? And again, assuming they don't have any medical issue, walking in the direction that they want to walk.
Yes.
An individual who is seated, officer, if he is seated, is that individual able to walk anywhere?
No.
Other than moving their hands, however long their hands are, whether it's 32, 36 inches, whatever, can they reach any further than that if they're seated?
No.
Is that different than an individual who can walk to a certain area and extended his hand.
Yes.
Or did you have a subsequent conversation with the defendant on June 25th, 2008?
Yes, I did.
Was that also audio recorded?
Yes, it was.
Exhibit 304, I'll show it to you. Take a look at it. This is part of that conversation.
Yes.
House was in April when you left?
Yeah, it was April. My friend Rachel that I originally moved down with gave me a futon to sleep on, and I gave that back. About a week and a half prior to moving, her and her husband came out with his truck and they loaded it up because they were just lending it to me, and I didn't want to move it. So they came and got it, and I didn't have a bed, and he was like, you just come stay with me. So I pretty much stayed there for the last week before I left.
Yeah, his roommate said something about the last day you had a U-Haul and you were leaving, and you had stopped by to say goodbye or something.
Yeah, I had the U-Haul, and I was already there, but I parked it around the corner because it was huge, and I had my car on the back of it, so I couldn't just park it right out in front of his house. So there's a little, if you go just past his house around the corner, I had the U-Haul parked there.
Okay.
And it's like,
So
yeah.
Do you remember what day, April it was?
I don't. I want to say, I keep thinking the 9th, but before you quote me on that, I can check.
But towards the beginning of April. Sometime.
Yeah, it was like more towards the middle, but it was already maybe towards the beginning. Yeah. Because originally I was supposed to leave early April, like April 1st, like a little after April Fool's, but I ended up staying another 4 or 5 days. And it was like...
Stay there with him or someone
Yeah.
else? Okay.
Yeah, with him.
She did indicate to you when the last time she saw Mr. Alexander was, right?
Yes.
When was that?
It was in April of 2008.
Did you also talk to her in that conversation about her relationship with Mr. Alexander, when it started, how it progressed, and those sorts of things? What did you have to do?
Yes, I did.
I'll show you these. Take a look at Exhibit 678 to review this audio tape prior to coming to court and listen to it.
Yes.
And is this the audio tape that talks about the relationship when it began, when she was baptized, and their dating relationship?
Yes, it is.
Move for the admission of Exhibit 6, and this was on June 25th of 2008.
Yes, it was.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 678.
May we approach?
You may. $678 is admitted.
Then listen to this.
long did you guys actually know each other?
We met in September of 2006 at the MGM Grand.
2006.
Yeah, and that was the Pre-Kid Legal International Convention, where tens of thousands of people go.
And when did you guys actually start dating?
Not for a while. We met in September. The following weekend, he invited me to church. And the following Wednesday of that Sunday, he gave me a copy of the Book of Mormon. I started reading it. I got baptized November 26th. We would talk a lot and hang out a lot. And we kind of had like a thing, and there was definitely an attraction and an interest, but we weren't officially dating until about February of 2007. So it was his birthday. And I think it was a string of events sort of pushed that together. Travis had kind of a commitment phobia, I would guess you could say.
Did you also talk to her about whether or not she knew Mr. Alexander's garage PIN number?
Yes.
And is that set out in exhibit number 295?
Yes.
Let me play it for you.
He never gave you his voicemail from his phone?
No.
Did you ever obtain it at any time? Or?
I didn't have it, but he had one PIN number that he always used, and that was 1220. That was his voicemail PIN number too. Oh, and he had a garage PIN that I have too, which is different. His 1220 was his PIN for his ATM, because there were many times when he gave me his card to go get money.
Do you think he set up his phone as well?
It's possible. I don't know what kind of. I mean, mine's password protected. Oh, mine's password protected. Mine before it wasn't. So I just. So the one for his ATM was Joseph Smith's birthday, so that's how I remember that. And then he gave me the garage PIN number, which was 0187, and I think that was Chris Hughes' birthday.
Oh.
Did you also talk about the breakup during this conversation?
Sorry, the what?
About the breakup between the two of them?
Yes.
This conversation of June 25th of 2008.
Yes, I did.
And is that some of it in Exhibit 296?
Yes.
I've been in relationships before where the other guy wasn't faithful, and there's like a distinctive gut feeling that you just have, and that I've noticed, and because I've been in relationships where they were faithful, at least to my knowledge, they were totally faithful, and that feeling just isn't there. And so I had this feeling with Travis, and I gently asked him about it. He got really upset, and he's like, no, there's nothing there. And I knew he was on his phone texting a lot, and I knew he was texting these girls, and I was like, well, what about your text messages? He's like, look, I can be flirtatious, but there's nothing going on. And I said, okay. So this was last year, I think in June. And one day he was taking a nap. And I felt, this is why we lost. This is one of the reasons we lost all of our trust. I shouldn't have done this, but I grabbed his phone and I looked at his text messages. And I found there were tons of girls that I'd never heard of. And I knew that he knew a lot of people from the business, so I didn't worry too much about it. But what bothered me was there were, not only were some flirtatious like I had suspected, which bothered me, but it wasn't necessarily a crime. But there were plenty of, there were like plans, like things like, well, where do you want to meet? Oh, I don't know, where's the best place for us? Where's the best place? Wherever the best place for us to make out is, you know. And I was like, what? Oh my gosh, you know, we'd been dating for a few months at this point, and he always said, well, we're not dating anybody else. And to him, that was, I think, reasonable enough. Because I think in his mind, he was making out with other girls, but he wasn't dating them, was okay. And the only reason I think that's true is because of what we continued to do while he was dating Lisa, and I didn't realize that either. So I confronted him about it. Actually, I didn't confront him at first. I should have been an adult about it and confronted him, but I held it in for a few weeks, and then it all came out. And that's when we broke up. And so I just realized that I didn't feel like I could trust him fully to be monogamous, and I don't think that he could trust me fully to not get back in his phone someday and then try to find something out. So.
Judge, may we approach, please, with regard to the
Yes.
next exhibit?
Yes.
Could you also talk to her about Cancun and the plans that may have been available to them?
Yes.
And I'll play exhibit 2 for you.
And for the record, what exhibit are you attempting to play?
298.
298.
It's one of the other ones that apparently now blank. Was previously admitted at the other. Did you also talk to her about the
Mr. Martinez, we're going to take the new recess at this time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, please return at 1:25. 1:25, please remember the admonition. Juror number 12. Juror number 12, would you just stay behind, please? Yes, thank you. You are excused. Have a nice lunch.
All right.
Counsel approach, please. This time we're going to clear the courtroom. We're going to clear the courtroom. Randy.
Yeah, that's what I do. Curtain.
If we may approach.
Yes, just a moment. You may approach. Juror number 12. Someone noticed that perhaps you had your eyes closed during part of the testimony. Were you awake throughout the proceeding this morning?
Yes, I hear better when playing a CD, so I can hear better. I can concentrate on what you're saying.
So you closed your eyes for that purpose, but at all times you were awake, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Any follow-up from the state?
No.
Any follow-up from the defense?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice lunch.
All rise.
Yep. We're at recess. Mr. Martinez, if you have noticed that some of these recordings are blank, we need to try to resolve that issue, whatever you have noticed.
Honestly, I won't have time this week, but I can do it on Friday because there's more than one. Or I can have the detective try to go through them and tell us which ones of them aren't blank. Because we went over them, and I know some are and some aren't.
Okay, well, it shouldn't be that difficult to reproduce since everything was on FTR, but obviously we do need to correct those exhibits, replace them with copies that have not been erased. All right, thank you.